Hi, and welcome to the Union Pantry. Today, we will be cooking up some history, traveling back in time to the Civil War, and diving into the Union and what they had in their pantry. So go put on some blue to represent the Union, and let's get to it. First, of course, we gotta know some histories. The Civil War, it was a war between the Union, the North, and the Confederacy, the South. This war took place between the years of 1861 to 1865. Now that's 4 years of fighting. And for the soldiers, it was full of blood, sweat, and tears. The Union and the Confederacy, believe it or not, were fighting for completely different reasons. Now, in terms of farming and food crops, the North definitely had it better than the South. The North had the geography. It had from Ohio in the east to Iowa and beyond its west. That provided enormous amounts of food. And the South had nothing compared to it. For the South, it was a different story. Now, the South's economy was based around farming, and its fertile land, ample rainfall, and long growing seasons made it the perfect environment for growing and farming, not necessarily food crops, but cash crops such as cotton, tobacco, etc. And these conditions were great for cash crops rather than food crops. So instead of having this, the South had this. Okay, we know some facts about the war, we know what the different sides were fighting for, and we know a little bit about each side's farming and their food crops. So now let's get into the food. Now, if you've ever felt hangry or you didn't have breakfast and by lunch you're like really tired and have like no energy, yeah, that's because food equals fuel. All this stuff right here is our fuel. And soldiers were using up their energy constantly. They were walking, marching, fighting, being outside 24/7. So for them, this stuff was like precious. It was sacred. And yeah, food equals fuel. So since the North had the upper hand, it had the advantage in terms of food, let's look into their pantry and see what the Union had to. All right, for the Union, we need to remember that there was some inexperience in cooking because before the war, women usually did all the cooking for men and for soldiers. So cooking for most of these people was a foreign language to them. But in their shelf and on their pantry, they would have sugar, salt, vinegar, flour, dried fruits and vegetables. If they were in season, they would have beans, potatoes, and for their meat, they would have pork, and on very rare occasions, they would have fresh beef, and they would salt these proteins to expand their shelf life. And as one of their snacks, they made hardtack, which is a type of biscuit. Some of their meals that they would make with everything in their pantry, they would make baked beans, which was a favorite, beef stew, and salted pork over hardtack. And for a drink, the most important thing on the Union shelf was coffee. The soldiers loved the coffee. There were also some trades between the Union and the Confederacy. When they were not fighting, the North and the South would trade items regarding food. One of the more common trades would be the South would give the North tobacco, the North would give the South coffee, because the Confederate soldiers did not have coffee. They had a coffee substitute, which they said was not as good as the real coffee. The dish that we will be cooking today is salted pork over hardtack. This was a northern dish. The soldiers would eat this, and it was a common campaign dinner, meaning that when the soldiers were in battles, when they were fighting, attacking, etc., they would take this dinner that was perfect for on the go. First, we're going to start with making our hardtack. The pork will go over this. So this is a very simple recipe. Only 3 ingredients: flour, salt, water. So we're going to take, the recipe calls for 4 cups of flour. I'm going to add less than that because I'm not cooking for an army. So we're going to add our flour. I'm adding a half a cup of water and a pinch of salt. And we're going to mix that until it is a dough-like consistency. I'm just finishing up mixing the flour, water, and salt. And I did start with mixing it with my hands, which was not the wisest decision. I do not recommend doing that because your hands will become a mess. So I switched to the spatula and am finishing. All right, so we have our half an inch thick hard cut. Our oven is preheated to 350 degrees. So we're going to plop this in there for 30 minutes. All right, so we have our hardtack in the oven. It's cooking in there. Now we are going to start on our salted pork, which will be the protein on top of the hardtack. So the pork is also very simple, as you can kind of catch up on the theme. Civil War food, very simple. So in a hot frying pan, we're gonna melt some pork fat, and we're gonna fry the meat in the fat, and then add some salt, add some pepper, and yeah. All right, let's do it.
Hi. Okay, so we are heating up our pan and are about to put in the pork fat that is going to heat up, and then once it's hot enough, we're going to put in the pork and cook it then. All right, so our pork fat is heating up in our frying pan. I substituted the pork fat for olive oil, but either one would work. So this is just heating up. You want to add enough pork fat so that it covers the bottom of the pan. So that's getting pretty heated up. So we're going to add our pork. All right, and we are going to be careful when it's a good sound. It's good, but we are going to fry our pork until it is cooked. And yeah, if you are making this, do not do what I just did. Yeah. So we're just gonna take that off. Let it calm down, because what I did was not the smartest. All right, so our pork is just finishing up cooking. Smells like breakfast. It smells really good, actually. So yeah, we'll finish the pork up, get our hardtack caught up with the pork, and then we'll be good to go. Okay, so our hardtack is out of the oven. So now we are going to cut it into roughly 3x3. Whoops. Sorry about that. My iPad just fell. Into roughly 3x3 squares. I have some holes, as you can see. So I'm going to flip these over, throw them back in the oven, and then they should be good to go. All right, so our hardtack is out of the oven. Looks like that. We have our cooked pork, and then we have our coffee with some sugar. So now let's try it. So I'm gonna take a piece of hardtack and a piece of pork, and it's not bad. I mean, the pork is a little crunchy. May have overcooked it, but it's better than raw. Hardtack, a little hard to swallow. I tried coffee. With this dish, the Union soldiers would drink coffee, so that's why I'm trying it. Wash it all down. Yeah. No, not good. Even with the sugar, doesn't taste like it has sugar in it. But so that is that's a Civil War on the go dish right there. And yeah, not the worst thing I've ever eaten, but definitely not the best thing. So I would say if you like coffee,
If you like overcooked pork and if you like hard crackers, this is your dish. Yeah. Well, that will wrap us up for today. Thank you for cooking up some history, traveling back to the Civil War, and learning all about the Union and what they had in their pantry with me. Bon appetit, and are there any questions?